First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. First thing we'll do is we'll straighten out on the eating order. We'll go in order, table 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
I don't know.
Right. Right. So, again, thanks everyone for being here tonight. This should be a fun evening. I'd like to congratulate all the scholarship winners. There's a lot of them that are not here tonight, and for good reasons. There's a prom and also a class trip, so those things happen. But also congratulations to our sportsmanship winners, Jamie Douglas of Alsable Valley. And Danielle Castine and Dan Wilson of the Seton Catholic Knights. Displaying your sportsmanship throughout the year. Danielle, I don't think you said one thing to a referee all year. You might have, but I don't remember it. Also, thanks to Calvin Castine for filming our event, which will be shown at a later date. Calvin does so much for the community, and it goes unnoticed by our associates, sometimes by IAABBO Board 43. But when we have to look at some of our calls and stuff, we look at Calvin's films, and it actually helps us out a lot. And finally, thank you to John Conowitz, our distinguished guest speaker, for accepting our invitation. And let's enjoy the meal. So we'll start right here first. Thanks. Yep, we'll go up now. Okay, we're going to get started on the second part of our banquet here. Let's talk about our guest speaker. Our guest speaker is one of the most successful coaches ever in the North Country. He won 3 sectional championships while coaching at Alsable Valley. He also coached 1 year at Saranac prior to coaching at Alsable. He later joined the college ranks as head coach at Cortland State, where he won a SUNYAC crown. Prior to Cortland, he coached 4 years at New Paltz and 3 years at North Country Community College. If I were to think of one word to describe this individual, I would think of respect. He was one of the most respected coaches in the North Country. He's a charter member in the Alsable Valley High School Hall of Fame. He and his wife Judy started a very successful company called Prime America. Everyone, John Conowitz.
Appreciate it. Bill, here it is. Hey, I want to congratulate everybody, first of all the scholarship winners, and Jamie with the sportsmanship. I've known Ronnie and Jim Bruder for longer than each of us would like to realize here, and they must not have had this sportsmanship when we were coaching up here, Ronnie. Nobody ever told us we won it, you know, never something like that. I was happy to see this. It was, I've been called a lot of things by a lot of people, but this is the first time distinguished has ever come across on the program, which I'm pretty excited about right here. Thanks for having us here, and Andy, great to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time. We coached against each other the same thing quite a while ago, you know, and it was kind of fun. But, you know, I saw a quote one time, I don't remember even who it was from. It was talking about, you know, to play the game is great, to win the game is greater, but to love the game is the greatest thing. And I think we're all here for the same reason. We're here because we all love the game of basketball. Whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, whether you're a referee, whether you're a parent, it's something that's out there. And I've been around a little bit. I didn't stay any place very long. You know, you just try to stay one step ahead of the posse, you know, and they'll get you out of there. But, you know, we always talk to our players about, if you're going to compete, at the end of every game, if you can walk across the field, or you can walk across the court, and you can shake somebody's hand and look them in the eye and know that you did the best you could. And I know just with the referees like this and the players, the same thing. You know at the end of that game that you did the best you could out there. And that's all you can ever ask of somebody. You know, and I've seen tremendous referees come out. I mean, the people we had here, I was very, very fortunate when we coached here. I thought there's some great referees, and I'm watching people coming up right now doing the same thing, but we're in North Country in New Paltz, and most of them watch John Cal, who's done probably 10 different Final Fours and NCAA final games. He used to come up to North Country to do our games up there. You know, we used to come to No Paltz to do our game down there. People like Mike Kitts from, he's all over the place also. He'd do our games in Cortland. Pat Driscoll. You know, they all started the same way everybody in here is. You know, there's about this much difference between anybody that's here and people that are going a little bit farther. You know, and I think the thing is too, I watched Tommy Lacey and I watched Tommy Edwards last probably 8-10 years doing games in Glens Falls. And you guys ought to be very, very proud as an organization of people like that and the way they present themselves and the way they referee games down there, because it's a tremendous reflection on everything you've got right here. You know, they're not in it for the money. You know, you're out here because you love the game. Well, maybe Randy does 96 games a week. Maybe he's doing that. Actually, before we were leaving this afternoon, we're down at the house, and I was flipping through the chat. I was looking for something, and all of a sudden I see the Harlem Wizards or somebody playing some game, and there's one referee, and there he is. You know, Randy got his 15th game that day or something. But it was, but he did a great job with that. You know, when I was at Cortland, we taught a class on how to coach basketball. And one of the things I always talked to the kids about was, you know, no matter whether you're coaching 3rd grade or 5th grade or 9th grade or Division I or Division III, when you go out there that day, those kids, to them, when you play that game, that to them is their NBA Finals. That's the NCAA chip. That 40 minutes or that 32 minutes is the most important thing to them on the face of the earth. And you've got to be making sure that when you're coaching those things or reffing those things, that's the same way you've got to look at it. And I think this was kind of cool because I was very fortunate that Jamie let us sit on a lot of practices and stuff, and I saw a lot of games. And I see guys that were up at a level here coaching a modified, or reffing a modified game, or reffing a younger kid's game, and always doing the same thing. You know, always working hard and doing the kind of things you like. We were very, very lucky. I mean, the game's been great to us. My dad was a coach in New Jersey for 30 years. And in the summertime, I worked up at Polka McCready in Willsboro. And we happened to start Casey Jones's basketball camp there in probably 65 or 66. And I stayed for a week after the camp to work it. And I met Bob Bureau. And you talk about people that made impacts on your life. He probably has had more effect on me up here than anybody else has. He was just tremendous to us. But he got me a job in Saranac. I taught elementary physics. I taught 10 elementary classes, 4 days a week in Morrisonville and 1 day a week in Saranac. And I coached JV football, JV basketball, and varsity baseball for $6,200. You know, and you start thinking about it like that, and there was people there that thought I was overpaid. You know, it was, Barry knows, yeah, Barry's one of our students here, you know, but it was a great experience because, you know, we all need mentors, we all need coaches. And I had Bob Hudak that I worked with the football, and I still is one of my best friends to this day. But I got so much from him about being excited all the time, being so organized, being going out. Morristown was our varsity basketball. I still think to this day, Morristown has got to be the best coach ever come out of this area. I mean, just what they did during that span. You know, every time if I'm in a house someplace and I'm writing out the word Saranac, when I'm writing, I'm thinking to myself, S-A-R-A-N-A-C, we're going to with the guy with the bugle out in the back. Charlie, you go up there, they used to ham you, right, Pete? You do that, right? It was a tough place to play. But, you know, Mars had a great way of breaking it down so that the game was simple. You know, and you learn from so many people, and there's so many people out there to do it. John Williams, when we came to IAABBO with the football. We just had so many good people that were able to follow and be able to learn from, you know. But Bob was tremendous to me, Bob Bureau. And I think my first game we played, we were supposed to play IAABBO in the first game, and Morris said to me, they've got a small gym. So we're going to play our non-league game is going to be at Dan Moore because they have a small gym. Now, I didn't know what small gym meant. Right? It was like, well, we practiced cross court for, you know, like 3 or 4 days. We go up to Dana Morris, my first game I ever caught. Al Rose is coaching the Dana Moore kids, right? And I don't know how they did it, but the gym was about, it couldn't have been as big as this room. And I mean, this part of the room. And like their kids got their feet out when our kids were running by, there's no room to move in there. So if you look at what we had, we had some big strong kids at Saranac. And we were probably, in today's terms, shooting impaired. We were not good shooters. And in the first half, I don't remember who was reffing the game, but they're not calling anything. So I said, you just throw it up and go get it. And we're just pounding the board. We're about like 15 at the half, you know. So I'm feeling pretty good. It's our first game, coach. You know, we're up 15. We're doing a great job. Second half starts. Here comes Bob Guerra. That's what he's doing. He said, we have a 3-man rotating system where like 2 guys do a part and then somebody else comes in and they switch around. We had 6 kids foul out in the second half, 1 in double overtime. You learn these kind of things. You got to make adjustments as the game goes on. But I think, you know, and I look back on the refs. The only game my dad ever saw us coach, we were in a JV tournament up in Saranac, when we were still on IAABBO, and we were playing Peru, and we got beaten double overtime. And Wayne and Dean Benson did the game, and they were tremendous. I mean, they just, you know, it was like, they were just out there all the time, you know, great to be around. And after the game was over, somebody must have mentioned that my dad was a coach, and both of them went over to him and he said, you know, you ought to be really proud of your son. I'm thinking we got beaten double overtime, but just to have people like that be able to do those kind of things, it was a great thing. But we got to IAABBO, and we were very lucky there. I don't know if anybody knew Dan Megan was our principal. He was a great fan. He just loved everything that was going on out there, but he was like a nervous cat all the time. You know, like we'd be in the game, he'd be in the door, he'd be out the door, he'd be up the side, up and down. So we went to Peru one night, when we first came there, and David Dupree controlled the whole game from half court. They ran like a 1-2, 1-1 press. He got every loose ball, he got every steal. We lose the game by probably 10, 15 points. So we practiced, this was a Tuesday night, we practiced Wednesday morning at 7. And we did a half an hour of, we weren't going to ever have a loose ball get out of our way again. So we had 2 lines on the end line, and we rolled the ball out to the foul line, and the 2 guys went after it, and they dive on the floor. Whoever gets the ball is on offense, the other guy's on defense, and then you had to score 3 baskets, get out of drill, and Jamie can tell you this, I was not a very good referee in practice. I didn't call anything. You know, we had no fouls. So you had to score 3 baskets out of the game. So we did that for half an hour. Then the second half hour, we put a guy at half court and another line of guys at the other side of the lane. So you had to drive to the basket, step across, and when you took 3 charges, you were out of the drill. So we did that for half an hour, right? So then I was teaching in the Keysville Elementary. I go to school in the afternoon. We come back at 2:30 for practice. And Dan comes in, he goes, Coach, he said, were you guys practicing this morning? I said, yeah. He said, you know, I was going by and I heard the whistles and I thought, best I shouldn't come in there. I said, Dan, best you shouldn't either. You know, but you know, we never did it again. That's all, and I tell you what, if you ever watch any of those kids play, when the ball's on the floor, our kids went after it. You know, I watched Kentucky play, and I love to watch those kind of games and watch those kind of teams. But the thing that got me was, after the games, all you hear people talking about, well, Calipari got them to play together, they got to play defense, they play hard. That's the way you're supposed to play. That's the way you're supposed to play every time you go on the floor. I don't know why you would even think about playing anything different like that. You know, and I watched Brody, the kids he had this year, they just went after everything, which was really kind of nice to do that. Jim LaGuardia was tremendous with us. You know, one year we had, they were going to cut back, they're going to put the modified kids like in spring or something. He said, what do you think about that? I don't think it's a good idea. We have good kids coming up, you know. So we enjoyed the CBAC. We went and we played like 25 games against like South Guns Fall, Malone, all those people. And then it came time for the CBAC. So these kids have played like 40 games. You know, but they were very supportive with us to do these kind of things. You know, when Jamie was playing with us, we always try to keep it pretty simple. You know, and I can think we're playing in the Fieldhouse. I used to always get nervous when we're there because they send you down to locker rooms, and I was afraid we're going to get lost and not find our way back up like a halftime. There's always like different ways down in there. So we're down. The first time we're in the sectional final, we're down 11 at the half, and I'm getting ready to go back out, and I want to get back out. And Kevin McAllister's our old point guard, and he's over by the training table. And I see him full, so I said, Kevin, we got to go. Come on, they're going to start the half, you know. I go, okay, Coach, go. Now, remember, we're down 11 at the half. And this is what you're talking about, being positive and thinking about things that are good. The game gets on, we win by probably 6 or 7 points. And what we had done, we were the middle game of the sectionals. And we had practiced the night before cutting down the nets. And we had 2 extra nets in the medicine kit. You know, so the kids are up cutting the nets, and the janitors and the security people, they're pulling our kids off the basket. You know, I said, Ray Holmes, I said, Ray, I said, we got extra nets here. You know, he said, okay, so we put the nets up after that, right? So we get all done, we get down to the locker room, and I can still see this to this day. Kevin runs across the locker room, and where he was at the table, he's got a little tape recorder he had, and he pushes this button, and they're playing the We Are the Champions song. I think I remember something. We were down 11 at the half. And every time I hear that song to this day, I get goosebumps. You know, it's just the way the kids thought about going out there. But when Jay was playing, and I knew he was going to be a great coach years ago. We're playing St. John's up in the finals, and they had the big Ford kid and one of the Fissettes. Who's the older Fissette? Danny. They're big kids. And one of the Bulls kids. They're a pretty good team. So we're up like 6 with about a minute and a half to go. They didn't have any 45-second clock. What do you have now? 30-second clock? Something. They didn't have any clock like that. So what we would do in the end of the game like that, we would always go red, green, or yellow. We had to keep it simple. I mean, Jamie was one of our sharper people, so you can tell the team wasn't real smart to start. and so we went, you know, green meant run your regular offense, and then you had yellow meant certain people took certain shots, and then red meant nothing but a wide open layup. And if Eddie McAllister had the ball, we double teamed him so he'd get it out before he even tried to lay it. You know, so we had a lot of good things. But and the kids could all pass the ball. I remember St. John's come out in a 1-3-1 trap, and just bing, 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 the ball probably made 15, 20 passes, and Tommy Finney pulls up with about a 15-foot jumper from the elbow and snap. We're up like 8 with about 45 seconds to go. The game's pretty well over now, you know. So the kids come running off the floor, you know, and you don't realize what you do sometimes. But I got in front of him, I went like this, and Jamie goes, pass the ball with 2 hands, catch the ball with 2 hands, get a hand up on the shooter, box out, no stupid fouls. You know, and all of a sudden I realized, you know what? Maybe they're listening. You know, so I said, okay, good, go out and play. You know, and I knew at that time he understood the game. And I watched him with these kids, and I watched, you know, they play so well together. Brody was such a great leader. He's a guy that could probably score 30 points a game. But what you saw in the games was the same way he was every day in practice. Never took a play off. And I think that's something as a coach, as a person, no matter what we're doing in life, we never want to take a play off. And I think that's such a big part of it. You know, we've been very, very blessed with the people that we've met from the basketball. I get a phone call around Christmas time, you know, and I pick up the phone, I said hello, and it was an outside number, you know, I didn't understand the area code. This John Conowitz? I said, I knew when you were nobody, you know. This was Jerry Welch. Right, and Jerry coached at Potsdam for years for some of you know, and Bob took me over to see them play early. It was probably early 70s, and I was so impressed by the way they played, and I wrote him a letter, and I didn't remember this. He told me the other day on the phone that he still got the letter. He said, I got this coach from 1972 wrote me a letter just how well they played and how well they presented themselves, how well they defended each other. You know, I said, if I ever had a chance, I'd love to have a player play for you. Ended up working his camp for probably 10 years and learned so much from him, you know, but he called because he heard Judy was sick and wanted to know how everything was. He's down at Duke now. But those are the kind of relationships you make. Those are the kind of people that we have in our business. You know, those are the kind of things you really look forward to. And he helped me get the job at New Paltz. He was tremendously influenced to get me there. And when I was at New Paltz, we had been thrown out of the SUNYAC for 10 years. They hadn't played a SUNYAC game in 10 seasons. So our kids had no idea about what was, and this in Potsdam was pretty good. So we had won 4 games a year before. We go up to Potsdam to play. They've been undefeated for how long? And we're 4-4, and our kids are figuring we're going to get this, you know. We're down 8-0 like that. You know, the place is packed up there. So we call the coach, call timeout, you know. Then it's like 18-2, call another timeout. I can still remember this girl, it was 42-4. And they run a back door to Brendan Mitchell, and he like comes from row 6, and he just flushes this thing. I kid Daryl Tyree when they coach for another time. I said, no, well, maybe the clock will stop or the lights will go out or something. And we hit a 3 at halftime to make it 53-10. Right? And that was and we hit the shot from half court. That was the only 3-pointer we made all year. So I knew we better start recruiting 3-point shooters somewhere over our line. So we're down 53-10. We're walking off the court, and Donnie Berkey's doing the game. And Jerry's in his ear, right? And I said, Jerry, you have 43 points. What the hell's the matter? You know, he said, Coach, he said, I just want to make sure if that call ever comes up again, he makes the right decision. I just like I said, Jerry, we're out of here. We lose 106-30. All right? Now we've got to go, because at that time, they just plugged us into the league. We didn't have a travel partner, so we've got to go to Plattsburgh the next afternoon and play them on a Sunday afternoon. And they hadn't played on Saturday night. And they'd played like a 10-point game with Potsdam that week. So we got a 2.5-hour bus ride to go to Plattsburgh that night in the snow. I'm thinking, how are we going to get them back again? So I said, he said, what happened out there? And we've been talking to these kids about, playing up somebody's nose and defending and sharing the ball and things they're supposed to do. And they got it about this far, but they never got it to the next level. I said, Coach, they didn't let us reverse the ball. They didn't let us get into the offense. They're up our nose all the time. I said, this is exactly what we're talking about. And if you want to get to that next step, that's what you've got to do. So we try to turn this thing back around. We end up beating Plattsburgh the next day in overtime. And it just turned everything for us right there. Everything just came together after that. Because sometimes you got to get kicked in the face to come back and say, you know what, I can do a little bit better. And Jerry was tremendous with us. When we came down, Judy used to do our book. And 2 years later, they come down our place. They'd won 49 straight league games, and they won like 61 out of the last 62 regular games during the year. They won a national, and they were number one in the country. We were ready for them. We had girls out in the lobby. They were painting people orange. They had all this, we were orange and blue, And you think about little things that make a difference. We had a big kid, about 6'8", that we played at Plattsburgh 3 or 4 weeks before that. And he was the nicest kid, gentle kid, but he misses a dunk. And his whole body language just turned around, And I'm sitting there thinking, damn, he comes out of the game and said, Coach, I'm really sorry about missing the dunk. And I said, Darryl, I want to tell you something. I don't want you ever to be sorry about missing the dunk again. Every time you get a chance, I want you to dunk that sucker. So we come, Potsdam comes down to our place, and we knew that if we got the lead, they were going to go into a 1-3-1 3-quarter track. So we get up by one, like 5 minutes going to half. We make a pass, and our kid Derek Mitchell. We always talk about leave a spot, fill a spot. We had big Darryl in the middle. He clears out, and Eric Wynn comes behind. We passed him, come down. I still got a picture home of Darryl going up, 2 hands over his head backwards on the rim with the whole Potsdam bench behind him with Jerry, and their all mouths are wide open, And all of a sudden, our kids realized we can do this. We ended up beating them. And I learned from Jerry that night. He came into our locker room after the game and congratulated every single one of our kids after that. And those are the kind of people that you see all the time in this kind of business. And I think, when you see something like that, we had great great rapport with some of these people. We used to go down to Tycon Road. There was always a war down there. Ryan, you tell me tonight your son's, 39 years old. He was born like the night before we played in Ty down there that night. And Ronnie still did a great job refereeing. It's all those kind of deals. You go out and you do these kind of things. Arnie Miller, when we do scrimmages, not many people want to drive down unless able to. He and Arnie would do the scrimmages. They call, Coach, how many quarters are you going to run? Well, I'll go 4 or 5. And we go from like 10 o'clock till probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon with just the 2 of them. I think the deal was we had to go to Rustic after that. For every quarter that we ran, I had to buy them beer for an hour. We keep going on. But Arnie was, how Arnie was very, very professional on everything. And one year they decided, because always the southern teams thought when they came north, they got hosed, and the northern guys went down, so it wasn't a good thing. So they come up with this brilliant idea, you're going to have one northern and one southern guy when you get down there. So we get down, we've got the southern guy, I don't know what, and Arnie's our guy, right? So we figure one of them's getting in, Arnie's as honest as a day as long, so we figure we got 1.5 against us. And we get down again, and we had a Win Grimmett kid playing for us, and he goes across the middle of the lane, and he just gets hammered. I mean, he's laying in the middle of the floor, he's holding his mouth, he's holding like this, and the play goes down the other end, finally it stops, and I go out, and he's still laying down there. Old Doc Bilardo comes out, he's got his purple jacket on, he's got his bag with him, We're leaning over, and Arnie comes down. I was very professional. He goes, Coach, what happened? Is he okay? I said, Arnie, obviously, after he punched himself in the mouth, he must have kneed himself in the crotch. He'll be alive. He just looked at me, turned around. But, those are the kind of things you say when you do these kind of things. You know, it's a great game to be in, and I want to thank you. This is the last part of that. We ran an Alzheimer's awareness tournament in, we ran the girls in Elizabethtown, we ran the boys in Mariah last year. We raised over $16,000, and Massachusetts General Hospital matched it. And the day the story came out in the paper, we were scrimmaging Beacontown and Plattsburgh at our place, and it was probably 8 or 10 referees from here that ran the gym. And every single one of them come up and said, Coach, you know what, we could have had it here, we would have done it for free for you. You know, and the referee, and that blew me away when those kind of things happen, and it was a good thing there. But I just, you know, I want to close up with something I thought about a while ago. My biggest fear when we were coaching was the kids weren't going to play hard. You know, and I think every day, no matter what you're doing, whether you're coaching, whether you're playing, whether you're working, whether you're being a brother or a sister or a mom or whatever, if you do the best you can each day, things are going to happen for you. They're going to come out there pretty good, you know. And because we talked to our players about two things. Every morning when we wake up, we've got 24 hours. We all have the same 24 hours. And what you try to think about is you can control two things here. You control your attitude and you can control your activity. You can be positive, you can be negative, you can be happy, you can be sad, whatever you want to do. That's your choice every day. And you can also control what you're going to do. And there was a lot of people, I'm guaranteeing something, that were much, much better coaches than us. And I'm still sure to this day there's a ton of them out there. But one of the things we always make sure, nobody's going to outwork us. Nobody's going to outwork what we did, and nobody's going to outwork our kids. And I think if you come into life every day with that kind of an attitude, it's going to be unbelievable to help you. Because if every day you chase perfection, and you're never going to have the perfect practice, you're never going to have the perfect game, but I'll guarantee you something, you're going to have excellence coming out of that. And if you just think to yourself that every day you go up, I'm going to do the best I can to help those things, you know, you're going to be much better, and I think that's such a big thing. You know, if you have a game plan that benefits other people, that's what I loved about what he does here. Brody was a perfect example of that. Made everybody around him better. You know, when you have players like that, when you have people like that in your program, you can't help but to get better every day. You know, so the thing we talked about with most all our players was this. Who are the 3 people in your life? And I'll guarantee you something. Each person in this room has people you're dealing with that way. But who are the 3 people in your life who've had the most positive impact on you? Why was it positive? You know, what did they do to make it positive? And why do you feel that way? But see, to take it one step further, have you ever thanked them for it? Have you ever stopped by and said thanks? Have you ever written them a letter or made a phone call to do something like that? But to take it to the top step, are you on anybody's list? And I'll guarantee you something right now. Every day there's people watching what you're doing. You know, and the thing is that they want to be where you are. Are you helping other people? Do you have a game plan every day that benefits other people? And I'll say, you know, when you see something like that, what we found up here, we moved back up here 6 years ago. We've gotten that back tenfold. The people up here have been so good to us, and I can't thank all of you enough for what you've done for us and our family. You know, it's been a great ride here. I really appreciate you having us here. And Tommy, Randy, Peter, I mean, 40 years with Ronnie, 35 years with Pete, you know, these are people that are not doing that because it's a big deal. They're doing something that they love. And as long as you keep that, in fact, every day, I'm doing what I love, I want to keep doing it. Hey, it's a great place to be, it's a great game. Thank you very much.
You did a nice job.
What did you hear?
Which ones are, oh, these 2 right here?
The next 2 awards are the Sportsmanship Awards from IAABBO Board 43 and NAGBOA. The NAGBOA recognized Seton Catholic and coaches Danielle Castine and Dan Wilson as the 2012 recipient of the Sportsmanship Award. As Tom Lacey mentioned, I'm not sure that Danielle said many words, at least while you were in front of him. Now, as you're going down the court, you know, there's a couple of different words that she had for you, but Lace, I'm sure you got the call right. I really do. I really do. But on the serious side, outstanding job, first-year coach, and I'm sure maybe if you get the sportsmanship a couple years later, you'll learn a little bit. You can say a couple things to the officials. But the 2012 NAGBOA Sportsmanship Award, Danielle Castine and Dan Wilson. Congratulations.
The 2012 IAABBO Board 43 Sportsmanship Award for boys goes to the Signal Valley Central Varsity Boys Team, Jamie Douglas. Hang on.
Let me say something for you about you guys.
Sorry. I was talking to Lorraine about trying to remember when this concept came up. There wasn't always a sportsmanship award. And we were going back 19, 16, 17?
It's at least 17. But
17 years where, and I can remember the meeting, I can't remember the date or the year it was, where somebody just started talking about how to promote something is to recognize it. And how we wanted to promote, you know, the teams and the coaches that were making an effort to work with us. You know, we're all part of that educational process, and support what we're trying to do, as well as we're trying to support them, and maybe coming up with some kind of way to acknowledge that. The Sportsmanship Award was born. I think the Girls Sportsmanship Award came a little later, and then on from there, and there's been one every year. And believe it or not, we had some rather lively discussions at our meetings over who gets this. This isn't just a real easy decision. A lot of teams come up, a lot of coaches come up, and considerations from every official who's there, you know, offer in about who we think is a good candidate and why, and it probably is one of our longer meetings of our entire year, just discussing this right here. That's how much we think about it, because we really do value this. And we value the people in the past that have won it, and we value Mr. Douglas for winning it this year. But anyway, the 2012 Sportsmanship Award goes to Sable Valley coach Jamie Douglas.
We talked about working together. We also ran a tournament, Hoops for Hope. We raised $3,000. Out of that $3,000, over $800 were games that were donated back, money from the officials. And I wanted to recognize them by name, but there's so many people here that don't care about what the person does, but what the organization does. So I think you guys should give yourself a hand, because you made two charities a lot of money, and I want to just give yourself. I want to recognize Ron. I'm going to miss you next year. You've done a great job, and I think everybody should just recognize you. Thank you very much.
so it doesn't get scratched. First, Danielle's on the camera. That's why she didn't accept the plaque, but Dan did. A couple people in the room, though. Andy Landry, now an official of ours, also won this as well. Chad Kaiser is now an official. They saw the light and they got out of coaching. And Larry Converse also. So we have some people in here that have won the sportsmanship before, and it's great to see some coaches come back for the banquet. Next will be the scholarships that IAABBO Board 43 and NAGBOA are to distribute. Andy Gay and Jim Karen are the two chair people that run the 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th grade tournaments. They're held in Peru every year. Since I've been in charge of the scholarships since 2002, we have given out almost $40,000 in scholarship. Wow. And all that money has gone to area seniors, and that money has been raised purely from the alumni tournament that Lace and I used to run, and now with the 4th, 5th, and 6th, and then 7th and 8th grade tournaments. This year, we brought in another almost $6,000. From that, there's about $1,000 that goes in our general fund. That pretty much keeps our dues down. But all the money that we receive for advertisements, every dollar that's come in for the entry fee, all that money goes directly back to the area. We don't keep any of the money of that. The concession stand is pretty much the only money that we keep for our general fund. That helps pay for our interpreter to go to the national interpretation meeting, our state interpretation meeting, and it also keeps our costs down. So a little round of applause, please, for Andy Gay and Jim Karen. With that said, originally this banquet was to be held last week. There was some conflicts with the room and whatnot, and people being able to be here. So unfortunately, there are a couple members of these scholarships that are receiving scholarships that are not here tonight, and I do want to explain why they're not here, because I think that's a very legitimate reason. And one person actually said that they would miss prom to come to this. In my world, that's huge, but go to prom. I'll have ZD another time. The first one is Stephanie Linder from Saranac. She is a 3-year varsity player. There are several D3 and D2 schools that she is still looking at this time. She's undecided. She's ranked 7th in her class. Tim Newell expressed how much of a phenomenal player and how phenomenal leader she was for the team this year. Led her team to the Final Four, all CVAC and team MVP. So let's give a round of applause for Stephanie Linder for Saranac, please. Secondly is Alicia Duquette, along with Stephanie Linder. They are going to prom tonight for the girls' part, so those two are at prom. Alicia Duquette, 97.8 average. She is down to 2 colleges right now. Phenomenal passer, and Linder had most of her points, over 50% of her points from the passes from Alicia. Tim Newell expressed how amazing the team lifts up when Alicia plays well. Linder scored the points, but Alicia's the one that did all the little work behind the scenes. She already has over a year of college credits from high school, and like I said, she's deciding between 2 colleges right now. She's also at prom. But let's give Alicia Duquette from Saranac a round of applause. Next is Bianca Grimshaw from Northeastern Clinton. When you start looking at these resumes when they come in, and the applications when they come in, what we do as a scholarship committee, we try to look for the all-around great person, not just on academics and not just on athletics, but it's a basketball scholarship first. But when you start looking at the community service, that's what makes someone, in our mind, an all-around great person as well. And when you looked at the community service of Bianca Grimshaw, it's like the who's who. She is a leader and holds some type of office in 7 different categories at Northeastern Clinton. That's huge. Great time management. Frankie Dumas, when I spoke to him about this, he said probably one of the most deserving people of getting this scholarship just for how genuine she is. Norm Bono is someone who I hold in high regard. He's been coaching a long time, and Norm Bono even called and said, "Randy, I'm going to tell you right now, what you see on paper and what you see on the floor is just a tenth of what she has." Coming from Norm Bono, who's had some phenomenal students that have played under him, that's a pretty high accomplishment, and I think it speaks volumes. 4-year soccer player, basketball and softball. She was the captain of all 3. CVAC All-Star. Let's give a round of applause for Bianca Grimshaw. Next is Rob Armstrong from Northeastern Clinton. 18 consecutive seasons. That means every single season he played from 7th to 12th. That's rare now. That's really rare. He was an MVP in all 3 of his sports. All CVAC in all 3 sports, the John J. Hubert All Academic, 9 MVPs all the way through. He is going for engineering, and he's narrowed it down to a couple schools. Let's give a nice round of applause for Rob Armstrong. Next is Jake Liberty. He is also at prom. He's ranked 5th in his class. He has 5 college courses already done. Football, basketball, and baseball. I had the privilege of coaching Jake on my Brockway team. Outstanding kid. And he's all around a great kid. Not just academically and athletically, but also with his peers. He may not speak volumes, but when he does, people listen. National Honor Society, he's been captain of numerous teams, Defensive Player of the Year, going to St. Lawrence, and luckily his father's here tonight, so I'll have Ed Liberty come up and accept Jake Liberty from Saranac's award, please. Now that's pretty good when your son has to go to prom and dad comes here for the free meal. Next is Carson Hines from Seton Catholic. Fourth in his class. I've known Carson a long time. I've seen him grow. 97%. In numerous ways. He's played football, tennis, baseball, master of all sports here. When you start looking at the Eagle Scout award he got, that's something that not a lot of people have now, is the Eagle Scout. And that's a lot of work, that's a lot of dedication, that's a lot of time. So that's huge. Going for computer engineering, possibly playing basketball between RPI and Clarkson, am I correct?
Yes.
From Seton Catholic, Carson Hines. Thank you. Next is Raylan Passano from Peru. Again, when we start talking about awards and scholarships and applications coming through, and you start looking at some of this stuff, this is just one of the most phenomenal resumes that I've seen in 12 years of doing this. She's the who's who of applications. When you see this, your mouth drops. You're just I'll do my best here. I hope there's enough tape on this camera because we're going to be a couple seconds. Not only valedictorian, so she's got the bookend part, but she's also prom queen, so she's got the respect of her peers. The awards she had, I could go on and on. Let's just say there's a lot of them. Okay. MVP in math, the CVAC All Academic John J. Hubert Award, that's only given to one male and one female for the entire CVAC each season. One. CVAC All-Star in soccer, class president, National Honor Society, I can go on and on. But the bottom line is, an outstanding person. She will be attending Albany College of Pharmacy, Raylan Passano from Peru. Congratulations. Excellent. Last but certainly not least, again, list of accomplishments. I pretty much don't have to say much because I think Mr. Conowitz has pretty much said it all about Brody. It doesn't take much time off on any play, whether you're up by 30 or down by 30. Kid plays all of it. Basketball is pretty much his life in my world, the way I see it. He plays AAU. He plays all the time. He's in the gym. Where he's grown, literally, from a smaller, skinnier kid to now he's standing and dunking. Okay, it just proves how much he loves the game of basketball. With that said, he's in the top 10% of his class as well. Okay, so another who's who. He's won awards in English and social studies. He was the CVAC second team, went to first team, and now CVAC MVP. Wow. He will be attending North Country Community College, where last year's MVP also went. I think he's going to excel tremendously there, and under Chad Ledoux, your game's only going to rise even more. Brody Douglas, AuSable Valley. With that said, we are now moving on to the service awards. I'm going to go a little bit out of order here like I did in the other one as well. We'll start off with Dave Brown. Dave Brown, a 20-year veteran. When I came up, one of my first games ever was with Dave. And a little nervous, a little excitable. I mean, I don't get very excited very much, as you know. But Dave was always a very calm, cool demeanor. When we hand out to the coaches, write down who you feel are in the top 5 of officials and why. When we get those sheets back, there's coaches that are putting on there and they're all putting pretty much the same thing. Cool demeanor, calm, relax, under control. It's very easy when a situation gets volatile and gets heated to get excitable. And that's something that Dave has a great calm demeanor about. With his job, you know, there's not a lot of time, sometimes he can't get night games and stuff. He takes time to make sure he gets those games in. A 20-year veteran, and hope to have him much longer, Dave Brown. What I'm giving Dave right now is a plaque. It's a 20-year plaque. It's also a 20-year pin. And this is something that not everybody gets when you're in officiating. And like I said, one of the first people I met when I come through was Dave. And he's got a great, calm, cool demeanor. So we're lucky to have him on our board. Dave Brown. Next up is Mike Roberts. Mike is a no-nonsense kind of guy. This is the way it is, that's the way it's going to happen, and that's the end of it. Wait, that's his wife. Hang on. No, Mike is very nonchalant. There's no extra frills with him. This is the call. We're going this way. That's the end of it. But he possesses something that a lot of people don't have. He puts up with zero tolerance. He has zero tolerance for stuff. That's something that a lot of officials don't have. I have a very high threshold. Mike is, no, this is the way it is. That's how I saw it. We're moving on. He has now been elected not only to the E-Board, but he's now going to be our next president. Mike Roberts, 20-year service. Thank you, sir. Mike Roberts, guys. I'm going to have a little fun with this next one. Next 20-year recipient is Tom Lacey. I'm going to be good to you, Tom. I won't do too much to you here. But Tom gets a bad rap sometimes, okay? But Tom has developed his game. Almost nobody in our association can say the things he can about us officiating. He's officiated at some of the highest levels. He's done semi-pro. He's very dedicated. I'm kind of glad Doris isn't here tonight because Doris would be really upset with me to hear all these great things about Tom. Doris likes him to have a little bit closer to home. But Tom's dedication to the sport is pretty unparalleled around our area for officiating. Semi-pro games do all the way down to Cape Cod, okay, 7 hours down. Stay in a hotel that's not a 5-star, it's like a 1-star. And to come all the way back home. The next day he's going out to Potsdam, then the following day over in Vermont, and comes back over and is willing to do a modified game. Okay, so he's willing to give up some. But Tom's been president twice, but on the executive board. He's also on the national board for the rules. It's someone that's dedicated a lot to the game, and even though I pick on him quite a bit, he's a great asset to our organization. 20 years, Thomas Lacey. I thought these were Peters at first, but I might want to put those on a little bit more. I got that comment from Castine as she was going by. Next up, this person was not able to make it tonight. Another person who is very calm demeanor, doesn't get rattled a lot. 30 years is a long time to officiate, okay? And Steve Parker has done that for 30 years. I mean, on the court, off the court, constantly. One of Steve's big pet peeves, he doesn't like to go to Lake Placid through the Notch unless he drives. Now, that's a little quirky. I said, Steve, what do you mean? Randy, I'll go to Lake Placid, I'll go with you. You can have the mileage, I'm not letting you drive. I said, why is that? I get sick. You get sick. I don't like it. I don't like going through the Notch. We're going the long way. Okay, Steve. I said, Steve, okay, we'll go the long way. We'll go the long way. We were going up to Lake Placid one time. One of my favorite stories about Parker. We're going up and the windshield wipers didn't quite work real well. So it's like a snowstorm, and now there's a truck in front of us, and we got some crap on the window, and he starts to wipe it over. There's no windshield washer fluid, we can't see. I'm literally taking snow and trying to hit it. But instead of pulling over, we're still driving. Okay? I look down, we're doing 10 miles an hour through the notch. Needless to say, when we got to the game, the JV game was all over, and the varsity game, they were about 4 minutes to start. But I pick on Parker a lot, but 30 years is a lot of dedication, and let's give a nice round of applause to Steve Parker. Now my favorite part of the evening. First, we'll go with the 35-year winner, with Mr. McMillan. Accomplishments with Peter. We can talk about doing college basketball, being the interpreter for, I believe, the last 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years, if am I correct. 17 years as interpreter. He's also the Northeast Regional Interpreter. That means if anybody's got a question from upstate New York, everywhere from just above Albany all the way over to Watertown and all the way across, Peter McMillan's the one you're asking. That's a pretty big accomplishment. He was asked by our state president to do this. He has done numerous games at the modified JV, varsity, and college level. He did something that Mr. Conowitz talked about. He treats a modified game no different than he does a varsity, and that's very difficult to do. We do a lot of games, the skill level is a lot different. It's hard to go in saying this modified game is going to be the best game of the night. But you know what? To those 20 kids, that is the biggest game of the night. Peter preaches on proper mechanics and one rule, one interpretation. He's not a big fan of some of my mechanics, but he also does something that a lot of people don't do. And that's he's willing to work with the brand new people day in and day out. And that means sacrificing maybe some of the big games that he gets. 35 years, and hopefully, well no, this is just 35 years. No, on the serious side, Peter, with the regional interpreter's position, we went down to Florida together, Peter and I did. And when we did, he was praised down there for the way he does his regional interpretations. He's willing to give those to people that aren't able to make it. Sometimes we have guys with work commitments. But the bottom line is, Peter's in it purely for our organization. He's not in it for the cash. He gets $0 for being a regional interpreter. And it's a lot of hours. 35 years, Peter McMillan. I didn't tell him everything. No. Here, Peter.
Oh, thank you.
Now the moment you've all been waiting for. Oh, Ronnie. Ronnie. 40 years. Do you remember your first game, Ron?
I do.
Where was it, and who was it with?
Chestertown and Horicon.
Has anybody ever heard of Horicon before today? Well, of course, the second oldest man in the room. Of course. Anybody under 70 heard of Horicon before today? No. Who did you do the game with, Ron?
Bob Garrow and Gil Burnell.
I asked this about 4 or 5 years ago when Ron and I went someplace, and you talk about Gil Burnell, Bob Garrow, and Ron Giambruno. The three of them combined are some of the three top officials over the last 60 years. The who's who, if you had a Hall of Fame of referees, those three would be in it. Coach Conowitz talked tonight about how Ron would be willing to go down to AuSable Valley and spend 3-4 hours. That's not just AuSable Valley. That's many places. When there's a local scrimmage, he is there for literally 2 hours. Now, he also takes 10 ibuprofen, 4 Advil, and 5 Aleve. But he epitomizes what a referee should be in my mind. He's there for the right reasons. He brings you water or Gatorade to games. He's got a smile on his face. He's always got a little tidbit of advice for you. He promised me he was going to wear his blue Converse shoes, his blue satin jacket for his last game, and he didn't do it. But down at the senior game, he requested that I work with him for his final game, and I made him sign a document saying, this is the last game you're ever going to do. But there's a lot of things we can say, Ronnie, but you've done it all. And there's not many people that can even come close to holding a candle to you. I still think you have the judgment. You have 45 new parts. You do get one free in the next one. But we can't ask for a better person that's been not only a president, a vice president, an executive board member, a championship official for years and years and years, but an all-around great person. 40 years, Ron Giambrino. One more time, 40 years, Ron Giambrino. Lastly, we'll have Mr. McMillan come up for some closing remarks. A couple things I want to touch on. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I realize there's a lot of things you could do on a Saturday night, and eating ziti at the VFW probably wasn't going to top your list. But I promise you one thing, these scholarship people appreciate it, and our board appreciates it. So thank you very much for coming tonight. Peter McMillan.
Thank you.
I don't know when this particular habit of me having to close came about. I think we might look at changing that. Just real quick, I thank everybody. These banquets probably mean more afterwards than they do at this moment, at least for our officials. It's something we do talk about. I'd always love to see more people here. I was listening to John. I was thinking back to coaches back then too. I was thinking about Shumway at Northeast Clinton Town. Beekman went through about 4 or 5 coaches in about 3 years, so that was tough to keep track of back then. Who was at Beekman? Peru went through several coaches there for several years. It didn't seem like they had one coach. But I also thought about officials. I was listening to Randy talk about the Burnell boys, Roland Gill, the 2 Benson boys, Nubby O'Connell came to mind, Bob Garrow obviously. A lot of these guys, Bill Badger, George Kurz, I mean I could go on and on. Just a lot of great characters Ronnie and I have met through all these years and had a chance to work with. One thing when I looked at becoming the interpreter, because it was Eddie Gallagher and then his son Randy, and I don't remember before Eddie if there was anybody, but there might have been. But that goes back way too far. And when I looked at becoming an interpreter, I remember as great as they were, one of our weaknesses was the rules. I mean, Eddie was super on them. But as a board, we probably always could have been a little better back then on rules. I remember working with, didn't matter if it was the Bensons or Nubby or George Kurz. If I worked with him, he goes, Pete, anything comes up, you handle it. Anything, squirrely comes up. I said, all right. And I said, when I became interpreter, I said, I'd like every official to have that kind of confidence. It doesn't matter what comes up. They'll know how to handle it. They'll know what rule to apply. They'll know how to make that decision. So over these 17 plus years, that's one thing I wanted to make sure I had a part in, is that our association, and I say, not that I need luck in it, but I think our association, as far as the rules, is stronger than it's ever been in all the years I've ever officiated. Judgment comes and goes, but the rules are something you can always use to make a decision based on. Otherwise, it's like flipping a coin, and no official would ever just flip a coin and make a call. And I know that. Anyway, so the rules are important, and I really appreciate that our association has embraced that concept, how important they are. It's not important to the people in the stands. It's not important that much to the players. They have too much to worry about as it is. But it's what we get paid for. And I really want to appreciate the effort and the energy they put in to paying attention to the rules. It's what we talk about every year when we have our meeting. It's what they keep trying to reinforce in us and to get that message across. One rule, one interpretation. So we have a better chance of consistency throughout the entire state. We happen to be in IAABBO State. We happen to be the biggest IAABBO state of any other state. More officials do IAABBO. We have more IAABBO officials in New York State than any other state. Some states have competing organizations. There's more than one association in a single state. We happen to be all IAABBO. I appreciate that. I hope that ever changes. Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.